Hello, Professor Krueger. Welcome to PHPS. It
Thank
is very nice to have an interview with you. I noticed that IER this year holds a special session for Chinese economy. As known to us all, each country has its own special features in their socio-economic conditions. How will you define a good research that focuses on only certain countries but will be appreciated by economists all over the world?
Okay, that's a great question. So the first thing to notice that the special issue is a special issue that is so the International Economic Review is a general interest journal, meaning it does not specialize in a particular area in economics, but all fields of economics. And so this conference is also not entirely just on the topic of China. We were looking for papers that were of interest more broadly for economists, but a lot of the papers in our journal are about specific countries. So a good paper is always a paper that has a general point that transcends the topic of a particular country, but then uses special insights or special data from a country to make progress in terms of research. So, for example, China used to have the one-child policy. This was a very unique policy. So we could, when looking at papers that try to understand why people have children, why people have fewer children, this policy intervention is very unique. And that's why one would look for a paper about China. Or for example, if one thinks about migration across regions in a country, China might have a policy that impedes certain migrations. And therefore, looking at papers from China is especially educating for that topic. Despite the fact that when we write down models, when we look at data, those should be of general interest beyond the special case of China. So if you look at the program, there's very many papers that are not necessarily directly on China, but that use China as a case in point to make a more general theoretical or empirical argument.
Oh, okay, I understand that.
I have a question. When did you find your interest in research?
Yeah, so I mean, in a way, I think there's a lot of my colleagues that will say they always knew they wanted to do research. I mean, I started as an undergrad. In fact, I didn't start only economics. I started history and philosophy as well. And at some point, I realized that economics was more concrete than the other two subjects and more quantitative. So I always was drawn to the quantitative modeling aspect to it. But as an undergrad, you try to do good. You have exams, those work well. And then at some point, a professor hired me as a research assistant. And that was the first time I really came in contact with actual research. And as I described before, when we were done with the first project that we had written, I had such a feeling of gratitude for the process that I thought maybe this is something that I can do for a living. But a lot of it was luck as well. So when I was an undergrad, my university had an exchange program with a PhD program in the United States. So I, as an undergrad, was allowed to go for a year to the PhD program. And I did quite well there. So well, in fact, that they thought they wanted to keep me. I think had I never experienced a PhD program in the US, maybe I've never become a researcher. But sometimes you stumble over opportunities, but when you have them, then I think you have to grab them. And after that year in the PhD program, I was sure that that's what I wanted to pursue. And the people in that PhD program helped me get into other programs. So I ended up getting an opportunity at the University of Minnesota. And in macroeconomics, which is my field, most people specialize in that. So this was basically a camp of people that were completely crazy about research. And it was very hard not to become infected by this sense of urgency, the sense of wanting to understand, the sense of trying to teach the world what you have to say. So it came quite late, but the moment, for the first time I experienced it, I was certainly hooked. And I worked on something very different than what I thought I would be working on, because I came from Germany, which when I grew up in the 70s and 80s had mass unemployment. So I thought I would work on unemployment. And then I ended up working on very different topics. And that was partially due to the fact that I think I had an open mind, but also in Minnesota, there were a lot of very charismatic faculty members that it's not that they told students what to do, but once you had a decent idea, they really pushed you as hard as possible to pursue it. And in a way, I'm really grateful for that. And the best I can do is try to give it back to the students that I'm advising, because certainly without my advisors, I would have never remotely come close to doing the research that I ended up doing. And I immediately, in the second year, started to work with one of my classmates and then with another classmate. So I really never wrote a paper just by myself, maybe sort of one, but I mean, most of my work is with other people because I just like the camaraderie and the process of doing it with other people. So this idea of trying to foster groups is not just because I think it's the best thing to do. That's what I experienced myself, and it's so much more fun than sitting in a library by yourself and trying to wait until the apple hits your head. No, you just should go to the lab, program something up, look at the data, and also read the newspapers to see what normal people think about the economy and try to derive your research questions from what seem to be pressing applied policy questions.